Welcome to What CEOs Talk About. Do you wonder what CEOs talk about behind closed doors? How they bring their vision to reality? How do they overcome and succeed through adversity? We share that and so much more with each episode. Now, let's get started with the show.
Good day, everybody. My name is Martin Hunter. I am the host of What CEOs Talk About. Today, we're going to talk, there's so many things. I tried this product on the weekend and it is amazing. Thank you very much for being on the show, Tim.
Thank you very much, Martin. Good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Tim, like all guests, what is the title of the show today?
I'd like to talk about Innovate Everything.
Innovate Everything. Fabulous.
Innovate Everything.
So let's get to it. So Tim, tell us, what's your role? What's your position? What do you call yourself? And at what company or companies or group of companies do you work out of?
Okay. So, my role would be CEO, and I actually share it with my wife as well, which can
brave man.
Very courageous. I know, exactly. There was a podcast I was listening to from some other guys, and they said, never go into a partnership with someone because it often ends in divorce and everything. Anyway, we have a very happy marriage,
good.
and we're happy to fight it out. And sometimes that can seem difficult, but actually it works really importantly to have those arguments so you get to the right point. You get to the direction that you're going to. So
and then
we're doing
companies,
that.
Companies.
And then the companies that we've got a few companies. So we've got 1902, which we do business as Pure Plus, which is our kombucha range. We've got Vibe Beverages that sells Pick Me, which is the kombucha coolers. And then we've got iLola, which is just started, came out of the pandemic. And that's really our tea revolution that we're having over here.
I had pick me.
Exactly. Yeah. So basically we do tea. That's what we do.
Yeah, in different methodologies and different offerings.
Correct.
I tasted all of them over the weekend. It was just fabulous. Let's talk about innovation. I don't want to spill the beans on the iLola because I think I'll let you tell the audience what the delivery mechanism is of iLola.
Okay. Well, we'll start there. We have basically created and patented what we call a Tdisc.
Do you have one with you for people?
I've got one with me. Yeah, I'm
perfect.
I'm opening up this device here, and I'll go into that
afterwards
as well. Okay, innovation, exactly. And let's see if I can just get this out. Here we go. So here, this is a rooibos-based tea, and this is your loose leaf tea, packed with your daily probiotics as well, all in one go.
Wow.
And so what really excites me about this, and my wife invented this, we had kind of a team thing together, and she had one of these eureka moments. And what excites me about it is that you kind of, even though you've been in tea for a while, you never really know just how much tea to put into your cup or how much tea to put into your pot. And both you and I have been drinking tea for a very long while. And it's always like this conundrum of you take a spoon and you're like, maybe another one, and then maybe half of one I'll put in, and let's hope that does, and so that's always the biggest question. So these have all been kind of carefully weighed and measured so that you get the exact right amount every time. So it just has that convenience of a tea bag without the tea bag.
The tea bag, yeah.
And I don't want to sound like a snob, but it's kind of when you start getting into the teas, you start to really understand why you don't want to be drinking out of a tea bag,
There's a show, I think it's called Outlander, and there's episodes, and there's the evolution of this couple who moved from Great Britain, who move over to America, and they show up and for the first time in their lifetime, there's a tea bag, and the guy goes, well, it looks like a diaper for a tea. And then I just laughed and laughed because my grandmother would have never loved it. She always made loose leaf tea. And because the tea where we come from, there's precision behind it. I mean, I lived in Asia as well. And and then in Africa is the same thing. There's emotions attached around tea that is very different than coffee. Coffee is something that you drink in the morning and that you don't necessarily, I mean, nowadays with Starbucks, you sit around, but there's this necessity or nostalgia that is still attached in preparing a nice cup of tea. So regardless of where you are in the world, Africa, South America, yerba mate in South America, I mean, people walk around with their yerba dish and their thermos of hot water, and they keep adding and adding and adding and adding. So that there's more than just. So I'm curious when you say innovation, when you think about tea, there's not much more traditional in regards to. So it's just amazing that not conundrum, but the spectrum, like Japan, like full technology, but yet still very traditional. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, exactly. No. And it's interesting, like when we talk about, well, firstly, like let's talk about like the associations that you get with tea, because not every culture has different associations with it. One of the reasons that we were called 1902 was that was the year that the war ended between South Africa and England. And so we thought it was fitting to start our business remembering the end of war when we come together. So as co-CEOs coming together, remembering the end of war. And we have this photo of these British soldiers and these South African soldiers on this long table, sharing a cup of tea together. And it's kind of breaking down these barriers. And when you think, if you go to see like a psychiatrist or someone like that, first thing they do is they offer a cup of tea.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And I've actually never seen a psychiatrist until I came to this country. So, and the reason is like you'd go home and you go to your friends and you'd knock on the door or someone would knock on your door and you'd look at them and you see that face and you're like, I'll put the kettle on.
Yeah.
The first thing you do, I'll put the kettle on. and you kind of go through this routine of either, if it's a guy, you just sit and don't talk until he's ready. And if it's a girl, you just listen to her chatting away as you make the tea. And eventually she has that sip. It gives her that moment to unwind and you get that pause. And that pause is kind of what's really kind of magical about tea. And we all have those different cultures, whether it's in China, other parts of Asia, whether it's in Africa, North and South, all very different ways of doing it. But we're all passionate about it. It is one of the most consumed beverages in the world.
I have to share this because we're talking about
I'm just going to show you my tea because it's brewed now. So yeah, I just
and which one is that?
Yeah, this is it's called Euphoria.
Oh.
Yeah. So we've got things like we've got tulsi, valerian root, lavender, calendula. It's got a little peach added to it as well. So you feel peach at the end of it. Yeah.
I was working for BNSF Railways. So back in a couple of years back, and I traveled by car, by foot, by rail from all the way from Seattle all the way to Chicago, and we were in North Dakota. And so I'm in I can't remember the hotel, but a chain of hotels, and I go in there and in my room and there's no kettle. And so I go downstairs and I said, "Excuse me, sir," to the manager, "could I get a kettle?" He's like, "You want a teapot?" "No, I want a kettle." I was like, and then he goes, would you want a kettle?" "So I can boil water." "So you want a teapot?" "No, I don't want a teapot. I want a kettle." and so he keeps looking at me and he's like, with this dumbfounded look. And I'm like, okay, something's not right. I was like, I just want a kettle. Like, electric is fine. I don't have a stovetop. Just plug it in. He's like, but why would you want a kettle for? And I was like, okay, hold on a second. What, when I say kettle, what do you think about? "Well, it's this big cast iron round thing." I said, "Oh my goodness, that's a cauldron. That's not a kettle." Yes. It's like, "What do you think a kettle?" "Well, kettle is what you put the water in to boil it to make tea." "Oh," he says, "that's a teapot." And I "No, teapot is what you put tea in, pour the hot water in, and then pour it in your cup." We had this amazing laugh in the front of culture. It was just absolutely fabulous to laugh at it. We're just like, he's like, "Here you go. Here's a teapot." I said, "Thanks for the kettle."
Yes, exactly.
So tell us, how did you guys start in all of this? So let's take Tim all the way back to before the businesses were started. What were you doing back then, and how, like, what was the awakening moment? Don't tell me it was over a cup of tea, because I'll reach through that.
So I started my career as a financial auditor.
Okay.
So before financial auditing, I'd kind of I've always enjoyed business. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I'm an entrepreneur at spirit. Mm-hmm. When I walked away from accounting, you know, my friend said to me, "What if this doesn't work? What will you do? Will you go back to it?" And I was like, "No, I'll just try something else." Mm-hmm. Like there's something in you that just is like, I need to start a business. I have to do something. And I remember as a kid, I used to go into school and auction off candies because there wasn't a candy store. I used to rent out tennis rackets because the school didn't provide tennis rackets at lunchtime. So I would bring in 4 or 5 tennis rackets. My mom would be like, "Where are you going?" "I'm off to school," like this bag packed full of tennis rackets. And she'd give me £1 for my lunch, and I'd come back with a tenner. Oh, so she had no idea what I was doing, but I'd be there at break going, you know, "Who wants a Twix? Who wants a Snickers? How much? Give me the best offer," you know. And so it was.
You didn't even have a set price. You'd auction it off. Oh,
I would auction it off. Who's paying the most? Who's paying the most?
Attaboy, Tim.
Exactly. Well, there's no competition at the time, right? There's nothing there. So I kind of had always had this kind of entrepreneurial spirit. And so I got into accounting because I like business. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to just do a business degree. I wanted to understand how a business worked and the finance of it. So I did 10 years of that and financial auditing as well. And I was like, that's enough. I'm out. So let's start something else. And so we left and we went off to the Sunshine Coast and disappeared off to Gibson's. And then we opened up this tea store. And
so for those who are listening, Gibson and is on. So if you look at the U.S. coast, you keep going north to Seattle, you get to Canada, you go to Vancouver, and you keep on going a little bit. They call it the Sunshine Coast because there is truly more sun there than anywhere else on the coast. So it's actually beautiful location. So look it up, Gibson in British Columbia.
Absolutely. Beautiful place. And so we started the tea shop there, and then we started having children, and they came thick and fast, and we ended up having 5 in 5 years. And I've always wanted a big family, and it is fun and it is crazy. And she is at 2. She said, "I think I've had enough." I said, "I don't know." And the 3rd pregnancy was twins. So there you are, 2 for 1. Yeah. But they're great. They're really well behaved, and they're fun, and it gives life a lot of vibrancy.
So why did you pick tea shop? Let's talk about innovation. Why did you pick a tea shop in Gibson?
It kind of fell into it. Like we wanted to start a business, and we did everything wrong. Like, I'm going to hold my hands up. We did everything wrong. If you could think of something you could do wrong, we did it. And we brought too much stuff in. There wasn't enough focus. There was, you know, we were looking at different things. We just wanted to get into business and didn't really have an idea. And neither of us sat down and really went through the steps, went through the processes of actually forming a business. But the thing that we kept being passionate about was tea. Okay. And the thing we kept coming back to was tea. And so we ended up creating 120 different loose leaf organic teas. And this was at the time when no one was doing organic.
Oh, wow.
And the reason for it is I don't know if you know about this, but with tea, like, you spray these crops and then you pick the leaves and then you oxidize them, you dry them, and then they get washed in your cup. So if you're sitting there with non-organic teas, you're just drinking
You're sipping in all these chemicals.
You're sipping in all these chemicals, yeah. So it was really important for us to kind of really get organic, or at least organically grown teas. So we'd work with farmers and find out how they process their teas and things like that. So because the certification is difficult to get. So anyway, we had this little tea shop, blending, beautiful smells. It's like going into a bakery, but for teas. You walk in and you're just blown away by all the aromas.
Oh, that blueberry one that I had. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
that's quite lovely. Right after
it is.
Well, after dinner was just before bed was fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. And so we got into that. And then from that, we ended up getting into kombucha. And so kombucha is just tea that's fermented, but it really helped with, our eldest had a problem with dietary issues. And so we kind of worked through that by feeding her kombucha and made a huge impact on her. And so, she wasn't having as many issues with some of the wheat and some of the dairy and stuff like that. And so we've kind of kept that alive. And then after kombucha came the pick-me's, which you've enjoyed. Pick me. Exactly.
I am of Scottish heritage, so booze is always very welcome in my house.
Exactly. And my family, although I'm English, my family actually comes from that neck of the woods as well. So I have mixed blood, the mongrel in the family. And then after that came this epiphany with the Tdisc. And
how did this epiphany? So we're talking about innovation here.
Exactly.
Bring me back the day, the hour, the minute that your lovely wife said, oh, I got an idea.
Yeah. The thing is it's interesting because you say, bring me back the day, the hour, the minute, and I can actually tell you when that was. And she's lying in bed with me and she wakes up and she's like, I've got an idea. And I'm like, okay, tell me in the morning. I'm sleeping. I've got 5 kids. There's not a lot of this happening in the night. So that was what happened. But do you know what? That's the final piece. It's like if you look at a really successful business and you say, well, this company just achieved everything overnight. They weren't there and suddenly they were everywhere, and what an amazing success it is. And what you haven't gone through is you haven't gone through the story of all the steps that led up to that point. And so innovation, we have to kind of take pressure off ourselves to think that you just wake up and suddenly there is this idea. It's actually a huge amount of data collection that your brain has brought you up to this very moment in time. And as you collected all that data, you then realize, hang on, we could do this differently. We could do this, and that's going to change how everything's been done. And as soon as she told me, I was like, sorry, I don't know how loud that was, but I was like,
that's okay.
That is exciting. I was like, I love that. That is really exciting. And I love big scale innovations. Like I get frustrated at people when they're so close to a big scale innovation, but it doesn't quite take place, And this was something that was like, I was like, you know what, this is totally different in tea. And if you think through tea, we've got loose leaf tea. Innovations in tea was like when the black tea that was being brought up from out of India mixed with the bergamot that was coming because the barrels were open and it was a rough wave and they fell together, and you had Earl Grey and they were going to dump the whole thing until somebody tried it and they were like, oh, this is really nice. And they were like, well, this tea we've named after the Earl and out it came. That was innovation, right? So sometimes you have these things that happen by accident. The tea bag, do you know how that happened?
I do not.
So there was a chap out east who was East America who was selling tea, and he created this new blend of tea, and he was thinking how he could send it to his customers. So he couldn't think of a way to send it in a cost-effective manner. So he took a sheet, cut it up, took their tea and sewed it up and sent it to them with the intention of them unstitching this bag and then trying the tea. So anyway, he got all these letters from everybody saying, I really loved your tea and I loved this new bag, this
delivery
tea bag
methodology
that you've created. Exactly. And so then he realized, hang on, I'm onto something here. And so sometimes you stumble across these things. So sometimes innovation is something that just takes place as you go through life.
Agreed.
But I really enjoy the ones where there's been some thought and process that goes through it. And that's really where this is happening, from the tea, from the kombucha, from the even from the pick me's. Like, it's all been a journey of innovation as we go through.
When a lot of people forget, though, that when you're talking about changing the delivery mechanism, especially on scale, you have to think about the process. And that's what a lot of people forget. Oh, wow, I got a great idea. And how do you monetize that idea, right? Because there's a lot of people that come to see us, Urjo, and go, I got this great idea. Okay, great. So, but how are you going to make it? How are you going to deliver it? So compressing, finding the right mechanism, the right machinery to compress it without losing too much of the organics. What temperature do you need to, what time, like what's the drying methodology? How do you package it? Now you're going to show us a new product, a new tool that you have to be able to deliver the tea and keep the consistency of the quality of the tea as well. So I think people forget as well that simple is best. Just keep what you do best and build on it. You know, how is this a scale up, a scale across? So let's show the viewers and then explain for people who are listening, what are you showing?
So I mean, I've showed the Tdisc, and the Tdisc is the product. And then what I'm also going to show is you kind of heard this probably squeezing around. And so this is our iLola tea humidor. And so we've had this designed specially for the Tdisc. And this is designed so that it ages your tea, so that your tea continues to get better with time. It continues to add flavor to it. It continues to improve. And that's kind of one of the biggest things, is like, what if you had something that just normally just decayed and was destroyed, was now getting better with time, was improving? And I don't know what you think about getting better with time, but I know I certainly would love to improve as I got older.
50 this year, Tim, 50 this year. So.
Well, you're looking good. You're doing well for yourself. But the other side of this is, and kind of one of the topical points is really like the whole global warming issue that we've got going on. And we're looking at the whole tea industry and the growth of at the plantations, having a reduction of roughly 20 to 30% in the next 5 to 10 years, because we cannot control how the weather is going to take place. There's floods that's taken place that was in different times of the year. The sun's not appearing when it normally did. All these things are having a huge impact in the background of tea. So as we start to create this Tdisc that you can age, that you can keep, imagine on a monetary value, how that is actually going to start to appreciate as it sits in your cupboard, not depreciate. And to me, any innovation that can do that is incredibly important. Mon, I want to share a book with you.
Sure, absolutely.
Do you mind?
No.
It's something that you said that kind of really just struck me. Actually, there's a couple of books. The first book, it's a little bit out there. I don't know if you know it. It's by Christopher Alexander. It's called The Timeless Way of Building. Have you read this book?
I have not.
So this is a guy he's an architect. He's a house builder. And so what he goes through is processes. So various processes that leads to the innovation. Absolutely. So he talks about, so you have this beautiful view that you want to look out onto this fascinating area. So why don't we build this window, and then we'll put a window seat? And so it's collecting all this data to create the innovation and the processes that goes through. He actually had a book written afterwards about processes. And these books were used to kind of revolutionize how software was written. So for coding. So you would have people that would write code, and then there's like this analysis of, and how do you structure all this code? So there was another book on processes of code, and this was one of the inspirations behind that book.
Oh, no way.
So if you want to kind of get into innovation and look at how you go through those steps of innovation, that's a book that I'd really recommend for that. The other thing you spoke about is money and kind of like how do you monetize all of this? Because I mean, you've worked for some big companies, and you get to that situation where you look at a large company and you look at the R&D department and you have two different opportunities. You can be PEG that wrote this great book, Playing to Win. You could be them, and you can throw a whole load of money into R&D, or you could be a company that doesn't really invest that much in it. But the problem is that there's a huge cost at the beginning that you've got to bear, and you've got to run through that process. You've got absolutely. To really take on that cost, because you just have to have trust that at the end of it, at least one of these inventions is going to cover everything that you've ever made. And often it will. And the other book I wanted to share is, have you read this one, Confessions of a Pricing Man?
I have not either.
Okay. I had to search this book, because if you create something new, how do you price it?
Oh,
what's the comparative?
So we tackle break-even points, right? So we deal with a lot of innovations. So one of our clients, shout out to 360 Pros, they've got this new way of experience rendering for developers, but also not just museums, just different way of experiencing a place that you cannot go to. So they do 360 drones and injections and hot points. And so they said, okay, well, Martin, nobody else does that. How do we calculate this? Right. So we have to go through and build the entire, and we built on assumptions, because there's a lot of stuff that we had to build on assumptions. So then we calculated, we did a bit of a reverse engineering, but like you said, you have to go with, okay, well, how much is it going to make the disc? I don't know. Nobody else makes discs out there. So there's innovation in innovation. I think it's a wonderful topic that you bring up.
Yeah. I remember I had a chat with a guy on the ferry. He was working on the ferry. He used to sell cell phones when they first came out. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to him about some of the stuff that we did. And he said he would have people that would come in and they would say to him, that's a bit expensive for this cell phone. And he was like, compared to what? Mm-hmm. It was like, there's nothing else out there. Like, how can it be expensive? There's nothing else that you can say. So, this impacts so many people on so many different levels. So even your sales guys have to get their head around someone's going to always find it expensive. And to somebody else, it's going to be an absolute steal. It just depends how they view it.
I want to come back a little bit to innovation and the fundamentals of innovation. People tend to forget that, a lot of people say, well, everything on the planet has been invented so far. And I agree and disagree. I agree. Yeah. Tea has been in human history for as long as we can remember, right? Yeah. So what do we got? 2,000 years before Christ, I think, even longer.
Yeah. Pretty much. It was a plant, right? So
yeah, exactly. So people forget that how is not the what, right? How you experience, you look at burgers, how many hamburger joints are there? And still to this day, it's how do you make it different? Humans have two basic fundamental needs. One is we're curious. Because we have a big brain, we like to try new things. So therefore, we're always curious. Now, curiosity kills the cat. How many people have, tasted a plant and died? So the guy standing beside him says, don't eat that plant, eat the tea plant, right? Yes. And how many people will think about it? How did it start? It's like, I wonder what this plant does. And the secondary is to share that information to pass on to other people. So for us, when somebody tries something new, they go, wow, I tried iLola tea. They have new disc. So therefore they implant that curiosity to others. So I think that the process of how you consume or how you produce is what is continuously innovated in technology and the application of old world products. Or
so like you end up with people that are just regurgitating the same idea. So they look at this person, they're like, that's a great idea. And then they just carbon copy it. And so what you end up is like a t-shirt with lots of different colors, a t-shirt with lots of different prints. It's like, well, how is that innovation? How about you kind of change the cut on the t-shirt? How about you change the design of it? And I think there is so much more that we can do. And I think the problem is that we're so used to just kind of getting what we want in our own picture that we've stopped exploring. We've stopped looking for a different way of doing things. And there's this tool called undo and redo. And I think it's something that we have to put into practice. We should do it in auditing, where basically you go into a company and you do a risk analysis. So you look at all of these steps they've got in place to protect the company from this happening or that happening. And you got to go in there and you can say, what could go wrong? If I was a crook, how could I get around this system, right? So now imagine you take that into everything that you do. So how about if we're sitting there on the production line, and we sit and we go, okay, this is how we do it. We've got all this checklist, we've got all these steps. Now, how about we continue doing that because the business needs to earn money? But what if we give them one day, in a month to say, if you were to undo this system and redo it, how would you do it? Yeah, what would change? Yeah. And you'd be surprised by just giving people the authority to think and to think about. Someone that's an expert on this system would go, this system's perfect, but I've been working on it. And now I go, actually, I need to change this thing.
You're earning more cookies. You're earning more cookies and biscuits, Tim. This is one thing that so when I lived in Japan, they have this thing called Gemba Kaizen, which is ground level Kaizen. Kaizen means good change. The North American mentality or Western mentality took lean and took it in and put it in a context where there's a negative connotation. When people hear about lean manufacturing, people are always afraid of their jobs. We're implementing lean. I'm going to lose my job. Right? Yeah. Where Kaizen, good change at Gemba level means that let the experts who operate the machinery at the ground level make the decisions to continuously improve. So innovate on a day-to-day basis. And you look at why Japan was so innovative for so many years is because of that. Yeah. Is because they let the ground level manufacturing come up with all of this decision. Now, don't get me wrong, Japanese culture is very, ingrained into having the boss makes the right decision, and it's brought Sony down to its knees. But the point of innovation is give the people, facilitate and elevate. This is something that I tell everybody always. Facilitate them in making innovation within their time frame. Give them the permission. Elevate their knowledge so that they can say, hey, Tim, Mr. Bossman, I've got an idea. Well, what's your idea? Well, if we change this, is this not an innovation?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to add something to you. Facilitate, elevate, and celebrate.
Oh, boom, now, boom, boom.
Because if you celebrate what they've created, it inspires everybody else to create something.
Can I steal that?
And it inspires them to come back. You can have that one. That one's free. It inspires them to come back with a new innovation.
That is fabulous.
There was a guy that did this study on penalty shootouts, a Danish guy. He went up to take a penalty and he missed. And he then went back and studied 20 years of penalty shootouts. So it must have been a horrendous experience for him. So, but anyway, people call him up, even in the Euros, this last Euros, people were calling him up saying, we got this penalty shootout. What's your advice, sort of thing. So one of the studies he did was that when you score a penalty, you need to turn around and celebrate as best as you can, as hard as you can. And because what happens is the person that takes the penalty after you is inspired to score. So you have something like a 90% chance of the person after you scoring because you celebrated so hard. So now you bring that into your business and you've got someone that you facilitated, you've elevated, they feel good about themselves. Now you're celebrating with them. Suddenly their mind's blown because they now realize just how important they are within your business. They bought into your company and everybody else is going, well, I want that. And I think I could get that celebration by doing this. So you're now creating a culture
I owe
of innovation.
You at least $2 million on that one.
But it's so interesting, isn't it? Like, I mean, like when you get into this, there was a story that that I was reading about one of the first founders of computers, and he created one of the first computers. He went out and got into printers. Went out. They were having some issues with some of their innovations, so he went out on the road and with one of his colleagues and was talking to some people about some of the problems, and there was this problem with this printer. So he spoke to the technician, and he said to him, so if there's a problem with this printer, what do you do? And the technician looked at him funny, and so he's got like this binder of step by steps. This is what you do. This is what you do, right? So he's expecting him. You should be reading me back all of these things that I've written on what you do and how to fix this problem. So the technician looks at him and he goes, okay, goes down and he picks up the garbage and he pulls the sheet out. And the technician and the guy that invented it, he's like, what are you doing? You're supposed to print off like 200 sheets and then you find the error and then you correct it. Well, the technician realized that you don't throw away the good stuff, you throw away the bad stuff. So you end up, he's cut how much time and how much cost on just fixing that printer. So when you get to that ground facility level, you're dealing with another layer of data, another layer of information that you don't have access to, and nor should you as a CEO or as head of company. You shouldn't be getting your knees dirty down there because that's not where you're supposed to be. But what you should be doing is you should be allowing that data to gather up. And that's something that we have this challenge with is as we grow bigger, how do we continue that facilitation of data?
At a certain point, when we deal with companies, so we deal with portfolios of company that focus on different levels of maturity. And the one thing that is consistent is that to be able to operate, people tend to forget that there needs to be a hierarchy of controls. And what I mean by that is, as much as people dislike a military structure, when you have a fine-tuned organization that is translucent and lets information go up and down, I was in the Army and I was into special areas where information traveled so fast, so quickly, so transparently, so accurately that people did not put politics, did not put ownership, and people feel that they let politics, and we talk about company politics, they feel that they need to have their own box, but yet the box is what permits great expectation. And when I say boxes, ensuring people understand what the expectation is, what the guardrails are, and what the center line is. Instead of putting guardrails, I say, what's the center line? So instead of putting limitation on people saying, hey, don't step over the guardrail, well, why not? So what's the center line? What's the key deliverable? Where's the singularity of purpose in there? Once you create that, that's where information flows very fluidly. In the military, we had quick daily huddles, right? We call them in business, we call them daily huddles. There's a lot of, why do we do daily huddles? Because it's a quick way to share information consistently. We tend to have weekly meetings or bi-weekly, let's spread the meetings around. But that human interaction, we get so much from that non-verbal of sharing that information. So that is one thing about corporation. And because they get so big, they go into different locations. So it's something that you just can't do. An elephant will never be able to run like a cheetah. It's just physically impossible. Well, as of I know genetics so far, but just the sheer mass of the elephant cannot run as fast as a cheetah. And so corporation people have to understand that the decision, you have to stay strategic within your time frame, right? So daily, weekly for managers, executive think longer term down the road, right? So that's very important. I'm
a big history lover. I don't know if you're a fan of history.
I do.
But one of my favorite authors is a guy called Tom Holland. And it blows my mind the amount of information this guy has. He's written this book called Dynasty on the Roman Empire. Now, if you want to talk about corporations and information, and you talk about the army, and within the military, they've done it so well. Like it's been tried and practiced for how long, and the impact of it has been so heavy that those that do it best, that transfer of information, are the ones that tend to succeed. And I think like for us, so often we can get a little bit insular on how we look at these pictures, and that's why I kind of wanted to share about looking outside of the realm that you're in. Look at what the military does best. Look at what architects do best. Look at what software designers do best. Just because that's going to give you that inspiration to really tackle and find the procedures that you're going to need within your field.
We our first brand promise at Urgio is ignite curiosity. So we really light a fire underneath you as a CEO or as a PE manager to say, hey, let's be curious. So why not? Why not? Why not? Ask why like you're a fifth grader. Why? Yeah. Why? Or 55-year-old. Why? Yeah. My 8-year-old boy asked me the other day, he's like, Dad, why do clouds float differently? I'm like,
great question.
I'm smart, but I'm not smart. That's not part of my repertoire. But we looked it up. So we were curious. Yeah. Both of us were curious about it. And so why do we lose that sense of, hey, why not? Just because we're adults and we should know better? That's just horse manure. I complete. So tell me so when we talk about innovation, okay, how are you spreading that innovation around? Okay, so you've got a great idea. It's great. How do you kind of set the tone on what's right? I tasted your Pick Me. How do you come up with consensus? What are the key tricks if you're out there? Because I think you've done great on innovation in such a short period of time. I think you do a wonderful job. How do you come up with a consensus? How do you say, well, this is good or not good, right? What's your definition and all that good stuff? Talk to the audience about that.
So do you mean once we've developed the product or in that final stage?
Kind of the final stage of, let's say.
Because, and I'll be honest with you, we have a massive parking lot. And I don't mean for cars, I mean for innovation. Like there is a ton of products that we've created that we've had to just park, and we've had to say, people aren't ready for this yet. Then this isn't going to take place. And I had to learn that mistake many, many times. We innovated something. I'm like, this is brilliant. This is great. We've got to go with this. And we'd bring it out and everybody was like, what's that? Why do I want that? And you just, you can become so deflated because it's like, this is your art, right? Someone's just going, I don't like that. But then what we found was that we may have been like 5 years ahead. And if we just waited 5 years and brought this in then, the timing would have been right. So we've learned to park ideas. Not every idea is a great idea, but also not every idea is great yet. And I want to talk about, there was a company that used to sell food for pets online. And they tried it, create this great program, and down in the States, and it failed and nobody bought it. And then 10 years later, there was another company that came out and did exactly the same thing, the same product, the same process. And there was a special way of how they were doing it. I can't remember. It's a story that somebody had told me, and I apologize for that. But they were just too early. They were too early on their innovation. So I think that's something you have to be careful. And really, when you talk about data that builds up to an innovation that takes place, you've got to test it. You've got to test it in the waters. Some companies are fantastic at testing this. I'll throw McDonald's out there as fantastic at testing their R&D. They have a huge communication chains that they would bring out a new burger into McDonald's, and they would then receive immediate feedback from some of their customers. They would shoot that off to R&D. R&D would make slight changes, change the burger, and the next day it's been changed.
Oh, wow.
Colossal change of information.
There's a lot of resources behind that.
Huge resources. Yeah. And it's not one of my most favorite companies, but you have to really admire.
Oh yeah, of course.
Things that takes place, and they react through social media and through what people are saying. They react to that to adjust and to say to their customers, we've heard what you're saying and we've made it better. So when we look at our products, we do have what do I call them? A cohort of people that kind of test through our products, and they'll give us honest feedback. And that's really what you need, is that honest feedback. And that's kind of where you start from. Will this be a success? Then you branch out and you branch out and you branch out. And the more data you get from it, the better a chance you have of success.
When we go into organizations, when we talk about innovation, we clearly define two different paths, which are NPD and NPI, which is new product development and then new product introduction. Yeah. Because you can define and you can build new products, but the introduction, the timing, having, Christmas in March is not the same thing as having Christmas in December. Now you can have a celebration, the value, the timing, there's a lot more that you get out of it at Christmas time than you do in March. That's just how timing is critical. Yeah. You look at everything that is done organically. A strawberry is a strawberry. It's only ready when it's ready. And the time, it dictates its own time, and it takes its time because of the environment that it's in. So having a strawberry, for those who know the difference, if you can have a strawberry in December, but it's not like a June strawberry that is still sun ripe from the sun that you picked off the bush. It's just completely different. So the experience, a strawberry is a strawberry, but the experience is completely different.
It is. Can I tell you some information, innovation on strawberries?
Please do.
So there was a company that I did an audit for, and they were in England. He had rows and rows of strawberries, and then shelves of them. So you imagine there's not too much light, but there was enough light coming through the roof to reach all of them. But what he did was he sprayed CO2 onto those strawberries. And so he reached out to this company in Scandinavia who had one of their byproducts was CO2. Okay. So they took the CO2 and they liquefied it. Then they sold it to him. He bought the CO2 and sprayed it over his strawberries, that then took in the CO2 and extracted oxygen. And the strawberries grew big, and you could grow them any time of the year.
Oh, wow.
Innovation. And then on top of that, he was getting government kickbacks because he was helping on the environmental scale as well. I was like, you are amazing. I was like, you have done something fantastic here. And so he sent me home with 3 crates of strawberries. So it's amazing how you can look at something that is normal. And this is what I was saying about how people go, you can't innovate again. You can. Everything can be innovated. Today marked the anniversary of the guy who patented the snow chain on a tire. So if someone says, don't reinvent the wheel, great saying. He did. Actually, he did. And you should reinvent the wheel. You don't have to create something completely different to it, but reinvent the wheel. We're looking at, charging batteries with braking systems. They're looking at, even with these battery cars, with a disc rotation that will continue to charge as it drives. Yeah. There is so much, even just in the wheel itself, that we can do that's going to revolutionize our future. And I think that, to me, is the biggest key. It's innovation is, how is it going to change the future? What is the legacy that you're going to leave behind? What is that innovation going to create for future innovations? And that's what really gets me excited when we talk about innovation.
Wow. Talk about full circle. That was wow. People who, when you purchase a pair of hiking boots, you purchase them for your future state. You go, I need new hiking boots. So therefore, if I buy these new hiking boots, I'm going to get more grip. I'm going to have better knees. I'm going to have drier feet. So you're always purchasing for the future. So I think too many people innovate for the current state. And I think that's that's what you're saying about the burger, right? Or the t-shirt, sorry, I should say, like, I got a t-shirt, so let me just make something different. Well, making something different is not being innovative in what we're talking about. So what can and I think that there needs to be, I think in innovation, there needs to be something that in this day and age that has a higher virtue, in meaning that, like, how do I, like you said about your tea, you want your tea to last longer, and because quality is critical. If we have to stop thinking in this disposable kind of world, is how do I make innovation of a product that is powerful in improving the quality of our lives, but also I think as everybody realizes, there's things that are changing on this planet that we need to make it better for ourselves and our environment as well. So I think that's key as well. So well done on that, and good tea. But then consumer talks, right? The consumer make the decision. So keep on innovating, and then that's the key, is they will make choices with their wallets. Absolutely. And we got to have fun whilst we do it. I tend to always ask, what is the one comment? Now you've given us some resources of things, so they could be different. So what's the one piece of advice, the one book, the one thing that you still keep in the back of your mind? So for me, it was, as the audience know, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Covey, great book. And so you got to have 4 or 5 of those books everywhere. I think I'm going on version 7 or reprint 7. First things first. I always reprioritize to this day. So the military people who are listening, SMESC, situation, mission, execution, support, logistics, and command and control. So those are things that you're always reprioritizing. So for you, Tim, what's the one piece of advice, the one material, one of each that has made Tim who Tim is today? Yeah, I think there's a couple of things, because like I have that book as well, and as you can tell, love the book. Mm-hmm. I think, when you look at innovation, when you're looking at assessing what you're doing, where you're going, you can't get past that blue ocean strategy. Mm-hmm. You can't get past, getting out of the sea that everybody else is in. Mm-hmm. It just changes your mind concept on where you focus. There was a couple of things. There's Outthink the Competition by Kaizen Krippendorf. I did a course with Kaizen. I was looking for his book. I don't have his book around, but I got his deck of playing cards. And I keep this in my bag the whole time. It's like the 8 Ps. It's like finding your 4th option. It's imagine, go through all of these different steps. And it allows us to really assess not just where we're going in business, but also where we're going with our products when we're innovating. And we have this think tank that our staff come up and stick Post-it notes of ideas and then we assess where that goes. The Jack Canfield's The Success Principles. Fantastic book. And we don't need to speak about the man, because I think the man has been spoken for, and it was amazing and has influenced so many people. One of the things that we took from that really was these focus days, taking a day off to really focus on where you're going, what you're doing. And I think that's really important. And I think you need to, if you're going to really start to change what it is that you're doing, you need to be able to stop and really concentrate and allow the data to come in and gather as much data as you can. And my final note, I'll say, is shower. Oh, shower. Of course. Best ideas come in the shower. Best ideas come in the shower. Exactly. So if you're getting stuck, just turn on the taps and jump in, and something's gonna appear. And the chemical reaction in your body is just that there's a whole explanation on why showering and why you get so creative, your mindset and the relaxation. Oh, fabulous. Well, Tim, thank you very, very much for being on the show. It's Tim's first podcast, so thank you very much. Well done.
It's a pleasant experience. Thank you very much for hosting me.
Thank you. Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, please like, subscribe, and all that good stuff that the marketing tells me to do and to tell you. So enjoy the rest of the day. My name is Martin Hunter. I'm the host of What CEOs Talk About. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to What CEOs Talk About. Make sure to click subscribe to get notified about future episodes, or check us out at www.whatceostalkabout.com.